Hello and welcome to my channel. Um, Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. And after a long time, I came back with a voice video. So I'm going to show you today how to set up your .NET Core web project for database applications. Okay, so this is uh, a project which is currently running, and I'm going to show some basic things before I could go ahead and show you another example of a project. So the first thing that you see in an MVC.NET Core project is the app settings.json file. Okay, here you mention your connection strings. Just like your web.config file in MVC and in ASP.NET application, uh, the connection string is mentioned in the app settings.json file. Okay, so here's the server name and the database name. Then a trusted connection is true. If you are not using a password, it should be false, and your user ID and password would be mentioned here. And after doing this, you need to add some packages, some NuGet packages before going ahead. Otherwise, your namespaces wouldn't work. Okay, so these three packages are mandatory, and if you are going to generate the list view or any kind of views you want to generate, then you have to use the design packages and some other packages. It depends on you if you want. Okay, so identity would be for your if you're using some uh, pre-written identity functions in .NET applications. Okay. So I'm using all these application packages. Now let's move on to the next one. The next one would be your uh, the class files, that is the entity. Okay, so my entity is this one. Okay, so this is the model class. Okay, so you have to mention this component model dot data annotations, and these are my columns. So I'm using an existing table in my database, that is menu list 1, and this is the ID column. So uh, a little note here: unlike your MVC application or ASP.NET web application, .NET Core uses ID uh, as an internal column. Like, it understands that this is an auto increment ID column, integer column, and you are not providing a serial number. Instead, you would mention it as an ID, and it would use the same ID number for its update, delete statements or search applications. Okay, or for search functions. All right. So this table was created manually in SQL Server, but in .NET Core you don't need to um, do anything in your SQL Server application. The entire database can be handled from Visual Studio, and this one is 2022 version. This is the community version. So let me show you some of the features that it has got. So the best feature is the IntelliCode. Another thing is the hot reload. So the hot reload thing comes handy. For example, you are saving. This is in a development environment, not in a production. In a development environment, you made some. The application is already running in your browser, and you made some changes in the code. So once you save it, the hot reload feature will automatically refresh your page in the browser. Okay, not for the production. Let me repeat that. Not for the production. It's for development. Okay, well, it would create a chaos if it's in production. Somebody would be making a payment and you refresh the application. So this is just for development. Okay. So let me show one more feature of this IntelliCode here. You might have heard of it. So let's see. I'm removing this return view, and IntelliCode would prompt me that you just press the tab and it will complete the line like this. Okay, tab and it's completed. Okay, so let me show you where this feature is. It's in your tools, options, IntelliCode. Here we go. Okay, so it might be disabled if you make any changes in this settings. If you don't make any changes, it's well and good. Okay, just to show you where this feature is, it can be disabled from here. Okay, now let's move on to another setting, that's your font settings. If you look at this, the fonts of VS 2022, you would like how it looks. It's pretty much um, good to have a look at and work on this kind of font. Okay, I think by default the font is Consolas. However, in VS22, if you look at the set themes and if it's set up for use system settings, then the font is I'm sorry, Cascadia Mono. Okay, Cascadia Mono, and the size is 10. You can see how the font looks like. Otherwise, it's Consolas. Let me show you another theme, and you might see that. If you take the blue theme, now you see how the changes are. Okay, so you might have worked on these font in your previous versions. So this is Consolas. See this? It's good, but then I like the other one. Because the font's a little bold and it gives me um, a good a good look to my eyes. I like it. Okay. So as a programmer, you know, we have to look at the screen for a longer time, so a better font is definitely soothing. Okay. All right. So that was all about the theme and the settings. Let's go back to our packages. Once you install the packages, it would show you here in your dependencies. Below the dependencies, you see the packages, and it would show you what all packages are included in this project. Okay, this is required because your namespaces wouldn't work. Okay, moving on to the next file is your DB context. Okay, so DB context will have all the entity files. Uh, like as I showed you the menu list one, the what do you say, the model, the class model. So you have to refer this class model in your DB context file. Okay, so I have named it as auth DB context. You can name it anything else, and this is located in my models section. Okay, so the DB context file and your model file, it's in the same models. If you want to keep it in a different section, you can have the DB context file inside a data folder. Okay, you either you include the data folder here, or you add the data folder outside and you create the DB context file there. Okay, so um, your DB context file is inside the model. Okay. Okay, now what does this DB context file have? It will have the list of all the tables that you are using in this project. Okay, and it inherits the DB context class, that's the base class. Okay, if you want you can see the what's inside the db context file. Yeah, I'm sorry. This VS 2022 is a little bit heavier than the previous version, so it takes a loading time. And if it's your machine is better i5 or a more, it would run better. Mine is an i3. Okay, so you see this. The DB context file consists of all the interfaces: iResponsible, iAsync, iInfrastructure. So these are the context. These are the interfaces that are included in the DB context. Okay, so we are inheriting these features in our DB context file. Okay. Now the constructor. The constructor will call the base options. If you have any other file that you want to include in the DB context, you can mark it here. So, and this one, it is generated. If you remove this, your program will work. I don't know why it's required. I'll give it to you. I'll explain it about it later. All right. So this is the current table that I'm using, the menu list one. Okay. All right. Now moving on to the next one is our controller. Okay. So initially you would have the home controller inside the controllers folder. So I just created a test controller, and I'm going to have all these namespaces mentioned in it in order to use the features. Now here, okay, in order to run the constructor, you have to put in the ctor tab and see this. Okay, the constructor comes up. Now you see this. IntelliCore is doing this thing. It's automatically telling me that you can use this thing with the private read-only iLogger. If I press a tab, it's going to use it. Okay, I don't need that one. Okay, so now I have to use the DB context file here. Let me just show you how we use a DB context file. See this. Okay, I'm sorry. I missed after the DB context. You have to set up the startup.cs file. So you have to list the DB context in this configure services method. Okay. Alright, so this is the syntax, and this use SQL server, it would not show up unless you have your SQL server package. This one, you need to have that one. Okay, otherwise this one won't show up. And in this configuration.get connection string, here you have to mention the connection string. So this is kind of registering your context classes in the services. Okay, so this is kind of a security feature. Unless you register anything here, you cannot use the DB context file. Okay, so you have to register it. Alright, so startup.cs has some other features as well. I'm going to explain that later on. uh, Moving on to the project, so we just created the test controller. Now I use the odd DB context here. Okay. Now this much code is required to do a list view of your data in your database. Okay. So what I'm writing here is I took a variable named response, then context. The context is an object of the context class, and you have to pass another object in the constructor. Okay, and then assign the variable with the data that is in the context. Okay, now so I'm using that variable to get the model name. Okay, menu list 1, that's my model name, and toList is going to show you the data. Okay, after you mention all these things, you have to return the object which will have the list in it to the view. Okay, and after this is done, you have to save it and create a view. So while I'm saving, it's still busy doing something. Okay, now add view. You took a razor view. I will also show you how to use the razor view empty part so that you don't assign any model and then you use it at the runtime. Now, as I'm using a razor view, it is auto-generated, so I'll have to assign a model to it. In my case, it's menu list 1, and DB context is good enough. Layout, I have to change this layout. Use this one. Okay, so these layouts are your master files. Okay, we will go ahead with these things in a different session. Alright, now I'm using the blank layout, which is the default one, and press and add. So here comes handy the packages that you installed, the designed one. Okay, so the design package is shoot. Okay, it's giving me some errors. It won't allow me if there are any runtime errors. I'm going to fix that because it's missing some tables which I had previously, and it's not accepting the new one. Even though it saves, it still comes back. Alright, let's go ahead, run that application. So it's in my views, test view, I guess, this one. Okay, now one more feature I'll show you. Wait, test controller has to design. Okay, sorry. Add view, add. Did I take the empty? Menu list 1. Layout is the one that I selected. Okay, now what it is doing is it's using the design package to design your list view. Okay, to build that. Oh shoot, man, I'm so sorry. I hope it this time it builds the list view. Okay, fine. Can you hear me? Okay, so yes, this time it successfully built um, the the view. Okay, so here what it's doing is attribute model enumerable, and it's using my minimalist one. View data is index. If I want, we can rename it. View layout. You can change it here. If you don't want any layout, you can mention null. And let's see how this application ran. Okay, now I'm going to show you how you can okay, suppose you don't know where your file is and you are in the CSHTML. You just refresh this one, the Solution Explorer, and it shows me that it's inside the test. Again, I refresh it. It's still not. Wait. No, it shows me where it is. Okay, index is here. Alright. Now let's try to run that one. View in browser. Okay, let me show you what it came up actually. Okay, this is the output. Alright, this is the one that comes up. With the default layout, and this is all the result. Okay guys, pretty much that is all for this part. um, I'm going to show you the next one in few days. Till then, have a good day. Thank you.